I don't think she ever worked at her craft. I think she was lazy and she was just living off her name in the UFC.
Ronda Rousey got worse during her time.
I'm surprised he didn't lose full function from the hair down. I gotta do what?
No, that was Stone Cold. That wasn't. I shouldn't have said. I'm sorry.
Cody sent me a payday and I sent it back. Now that he's got all this money, I might need to revisit.
Out of all the music or anything they want to hear, what do you think Gorilla wanted to hear?
There are people that really thought WCW was going to win. What's up with that?
Well, Mania's in the rear view. Now it's time to get to work. Welcome into Behind the Turnbuckle, your new favorite Storytime pro wrestling show. Over 45 years in the WWE. My man, Big Tommy C. Over 32 years, I'm the coach. Over 12 years, 16 WrestleManias here. A whole bunch over there. Tommy, a big week, because guess what? We have our very first guest right here on the show today. How are you, sir?
Very well, and I can't wait for this to happen. And as you know, the weeks after WrestleMania gets crazy, and let's get right into it.
You're damn right. Hurricane Helms will be here later on in the show. Give us his perspective. He's a backstage producer now. His time with The Rock, all the stuff in between. Incredible interview. You don't want to miss it coming up with Hurricane here in about 15 or 20 minutes. But Tommy, we got to start with our reaction to what's going on in the world of pro wrestling. We always try to tie it back to our days from like 2000 and 2010. But when we always would get to April, my biggest bitch or my biggest complaint was, how come we don't get any time off? Roman Reigns is getting a whole bunch of time off. Well, he's also been fighting cancer for several years.
Right.
The fact that they don't give the guys time off to either celebrate what they've just done or to heal up, I've always thought is a mistake. But hey, the trucks keep on moving. There might be less of them. The trucks keep on moving. What did April always mean to you after Mania inside the walls?
Inside the, you always thought like, oh man, Mania is over and, we get a little break. But no, the rat race continues, Coach. What's coming up next? What shows are we going to do? What's next for the WWE? And as you know, April, there's some cuts coming. So everybody was always nervous about that, whether you're talent or TV production or anything else. So April was a little creepy for everybody. You were excited about WrestleMania, but something was going to happen after Mania, and you just didn't know what it was. So you always had to be prepared and be on your toes at all times and to expect the unexpected, because that's what the WWE is.
And if you are what I like to call a C player, you better be prepared to either pitch an idea that kills or you're going to be looking for work otherwise. There was never big surprises. I never remember like a shocking, they let that person go. It was usually to be expected. However, Tommy, we saw a lot of interviews with different superstars, and there's some big time names that contracts we thought were going to get done, but reportedly have not gotten done yet. Apparently, we're not going to see Becky Lynch for a little while. Drew McIntyre, he doesn't have his new deal done. Which of these big names would shock you the most if they either took an extended break or just left the company altogether?
Drew McIntyre.
Why?
Out of everybody that you just mentioned, Drew McIntyre. Becky's been there. Drew's been fighting to be the champ and everything like that. And if he left, I would be totally shocked that WWE couldn't get a deal done with Drew McIntyre, because he's a top talent, Coach. He can cut a promo. He can work in the ring. He can represent the company in a big way. He can go on a talk show. He can do a spot on a TV show or anything like that. He can go on Saturday Night Live or whatever. He's very entertaining, and I think I would be totally shocked if Drew McIntyre left.
He is the type of guy that works with small guys. He can work with big guys. He's really embraced using social media, just like The Rock did leading up to WrestleMania, as an advantage. Because a lot of people don't think about using it as a weapon, a positive marketing weapon. But on the other side, Tommy, I know you said Drew McIntyre. Becky Lynch told Ariel Helwani, he said, will this be your last WrestleMania? And she says, I wouldn't count on it. Being very, very coy. Because I think sometimes, and I'm obviously not in these conversations or these negotiations, but when you get to a point where your ego says, you know what, if that person's making X amount of dollars, I deserve more. Instead of saying, you know what, $2 million is a pretty good payday to be a wrestler in the WWE. I wonder if, because there was also reports that Stone Cold couldn't come to a financial agreement to
Right.
be a part of the main event.
Yep.
Sometimes when we've seen it in wrestling, Tommy, it's not that they overshoot their shot, but sometimes you got to realize that from a company perspective, maybe they don't see you as a $3 million talent, and throwing $2 million for 4 or 5 years out the window to me has always been crazy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you gotta look at, what you've done and who's behind you. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
some really top young superstars, women superstars right behind her, like, excuse me, Bianca Belair, Naomi's back. They're gonna build up Jade Cargill, and you gotta look like you're more on the downside of your career, and they're on the upside of their career. So you gotta
Mm-hmm.
really look at it and say, "I'm really gonna pass up $2 million? Like, really?" So you got to take a look in yourself, and it's hard because you're at that point in her career. Her ego is so big, and she thinks she is, what she thinks, but what the company thinks
That's exactly right.
is
And
totally
it's
different.
a different company now, Tommy. It's
Oh,
not
big
it's
time.
not one person is making the choices anymore. There's a collective. And I think we're going to see a lot of things change, including the top stars will still get paid top money because you got to have them. But it's those A- stars, and I think that's where we find Becky Lynch right now. She's not
Yep.
A+ anymore, but she's right there.
Yep.
But do you think the fact that the reports for Rhea Ripley are this? She comes out on Raw. She's in a sling, very, very deflated. There was social media video of a moment with Triple H where she
Yeah.
was almost in tears. And reportedly, Tommy, she's going to be out until late fall, which
Yep.
would be October or November. We're talking 6 or 7 months during perhaps the most important time of the year. You start to set the storylines to lead into Mania next year. So, with the fact that she's going to be gone, do you think that helps the negotiations for Becky Lynch?
I don't. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think WWE and the way the company has changed. It's not one person anymore. Maybe that
Mm-hmm.
one person had a real likeness, really had affection, and liked her a lot. It's not about that anymore. I think they don't care as much as the old regime used to care about the superstars. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't think so. And look at Rhea Ripley just won at the greatest WrestleMania ever. Look at the money she's going to lose, coach. And the fact of the matter, you're not even going to see her or hear her. And when you're not seen in this business, out of sight, out of mind. Right?
There's no other business, Tommy, that's like that.
Right.
There's no other business that's like that.
Right.
And for people who don't know, and again, they could have changed the contracts since I was there, but I doubt that they have. The contracts are kind of, Tommy, like NFL contracts. The downside guarantee. Think of when you hear Kirk Cousins, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed. That's how WWE
Right.
does their contracts. So
Right.
your downside when you're injured, that's why the downside is so important. Because if
Right.
you're sitting at home, whether they're not using you or you're hurt, you still get that downside. And that's why
Yep.
back in the day, Tommy, when Rock and Cena and Brock, they started getting those huge downside guarantees that kind of changed the business a little bit because you get paid by every show if you go to the house shows, but you've got to make at least that number. And then from there, it's about bonuses and about pay-per-views and things like that. And that's what you're alluding to. But now that there's not the pay-per-view model, I wonder how much she's going to lose. But it's a great point by you. It really, really is.
Here's the other point, coach. She's not there, out of sight, out of mind. Somebody else
Mm-hmm.
comes and takes the title and becomes this. I mean, she's worked so hard to get where she is, right? And now she's gone, and this star really has taken over. Wow, that hurts the ego big time. So,
And it sucks to sit at home and watch that happen. We've seen a
oh my
million
God.
different guys and ladies that's happened
Yep.
to, and there's nothing
Yep.
you can do in
Right.
this business. And that's what, we're going to ask Hurricane Helms about it. The grind of being out there every single week. Because, Tommy, a wrestler's mentality, our mentality is if I'm not there because you know who made us feel that way. You
That's
shouldn't
right.
miss 2 or 3 weeks a year and feel guilty about it.
That's
But
right.
if you're a big star and you're
Yep.
making millions of dollars, damn it, I want to be there.
Yep.
Damn it, I want to be there.
Yep.
But you know the one name I have in my mind right now, Tommy?
Who?
That if I'm this person, this female, that I'm working my ass off after I just found out what happened to Rhea Ripley, who would that be to you? If there's one female superstar that has a chance to really be elevated because of this injury, who in your mind would it be?
I was going to say Liv Morgan, but she's almost like she's almost there.
Mm-hmm. I don't. She doesn't feel like a big star to me. Liv
She
Morgan.
doesn't feel like a big star, and
Yeah,
she's not, no offense to her size or anything, but she's not Rhea Ripley, right? So,
correct. She
I
doesn't
don't know,
check
but
all the boxes.
right, right.
I was thinking Jade Cargill
Oh,
because
yeah,
right. So because to me, what's holding her back is her mic work,
yep,
and if you can't talk, you cannot be the biggest star in this business. She looks
right,
like $1,000,000. She's incredible physically, but on the mic, she lacks so much.
yep,
And she's got to pick it up because now there's a big spot to fill.
yeah.
And you could have it, but if you can't go out there and go to toe with a Charlotte Flair or a Becky Lynch or any of these women that are good on the mic, there's only so far they can book her, Tommy,
That's
and
right.
that would be a shame.
Yeah.
That would be a shame.
She's $1,000,000, coach. She'd represent the company in a big way. Wow. Her having the title, going on talk shows, the way she looks and the shape she's in, incredible. But you gotta have everything, coach, right?
You have to.
Charisma,
You have
talking
to.
on the mic, working in the ring, the whole bit.
There's one other female I want to get to, but two other topics quickly, and then we'll bring in Hurricane Helms, who is standing by. Can't wait to talk to him about everything, including WrestleMania and including this guy, Tommy. It really feels like when we were in the 80s and the 90s, and it was Hulk Hogan clearly at the top, then everybody else kind of filled in the blanks. Because of how they booked WrestleMania and because of how they booked Cody Rhodes, and because Cody Rhodes said on Monday night, listen, I'm going to go wherever I want to go, meaning both shows, which I told you last week, that's
Right.
exactly what I would do. You get that money, you get that bag, and you show up every chance you can get. But now I feel like the weight of the world is on Cody Rhodes. And if he doesn't show up to a TV or doesn't show up to a big pay-per-view, which they're going to have a bunch of around the world, so now the ultimate grind is going to be on Cody. Is it fair that the WWE has situated him in this way, Tommy?
He's wanted it, coach. He wanted to finish his story. He wanted the title. Yeah, and they're jumping on Cody and running with this as far as they can go with it. And with Roman Reigns not there and The Rock taking time off, this guy, there's nobody bigger than Cody in the WWE and any male superstar. And I'll go as far as say Seth Rollins also. So they're jumping on that bandwagon. He's going to be the workhorse. He's going to go all over the place. And I want to see him on, excuse me, on Raw and SmackDown every week and see what he brings to the table. So they're jumping on that horse and they're taking him right to the finish line, coach.
That's right. I mean, you talk about Roman Reigns, over 1,300 days he was at the top, and they very strategically had him show up and then have him disappear. But if you're healthy, like Cody Rhodes is, they're going to put the whole company on him, and he better be where he's at. He probably should be making between $7 to $15 million a year. That's what he is probably deserved. Now, another big name, and we're going to lead into the Hurricane Helms interview this way because he is the person who has been training Logan Paul. And Logan Paul gets a lot of reactions one way or the other because he is not a full-time superstar. But when he shows up, he always seems to have the moment of the night. He always seems to have the match of the night. They put him in big Saudi shows against Roman Reigns and all that stuff. But it reminds me of when Ronda Rousey came over from the UFC. And I got cooked, Tommy. I got cooked because I was on First Take at ESPN. And I said, she's not going to come over right away because they're not in the business of rehabilitating stars' egos because she had such an unceremonious exit from the UFC.
Right.
It was over. It wasn't like she didn't go walk out the door and walk in the door. It was a significant period of time. I was correct. But yet I still had to basically apologize about the situation. But she came in, Tommy, with a big ego. I think that's fair. And now she's, I think, written a book, but she's been doing interviews everywhere. Yeah. And she recently touched on Logan Paul and said, and this is what drives me insane about certain competitors, when they blame other things and blame other people. Right. She said this, Tommy, and I want your reaction to it. If I had the preparation time, and I'm paraphrasing, and I had the ability to have the research and the company behind me and all the time to prepare my matches, because I had a great first match because I had that time, then I could have done more great things also. You couple that with Becky Lynch saying she could never wrestle. That first big match was her downfall because everybody expected that. Seeing all of these quotes and the way that it seems like to me, she hasn't taken ownership of anything during her time in the WWE. And that's a little bit frustrating because I didn't see her one time when I was there, not once, walk out to the ring, work out during the day, put in the time when she had all the time in the world. So I
That's
don't
right.
buy the passing the buck. Do you?
No, I think it's BS, Coach. Let's take a look at it, Coach. Rock was here, what, 12 weeks? He
Mhm.
flew through the 3 rings. The guy worked out every
Yes.
time, every chance he can get. He worked at his craft. I don't think she ever worked at her craft. I think she was lazy and she was just living off her name in the UFC that she was such a badass. So don't go blaming other. Logan Paul, when he's here, he's one of the top superstars that WWE
Yes,
has.
he is.
He
Yes, he
can
is.
work in the ring. He could cut on the microphone. He's how huge is he in social media? How many millions of people follow this guy, right? But he doesn't lay down, dude. He works his butt off in that ring. And I never saw that from Ronda. And all of a sudden now you come out with all these interviews with the controversy that we all know what happened. We're not going to get into it with WWE and the chairman. Now all of a sudden we see Ronda Rousey doing all these
Well, that's
interviews,
what
and I
happens
know
when
she
you have
has
a
a
book
book.
come out.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, of course. So that's a bunch of BS, Coach.
You
Bunch.
know, I'm not a fan of when big stars don't pan out, and she just didn't pan out. It's not for
Right,
everybody, but
right.
that's okay. But she had such a great debut, and I will give her credit for that. And she came in, made a ton of money, and love to say, I don't need to be here. You know, I'm set. I made enough in
Right,
UFC. That might be true, but you got to have purpose when you wake
right.
up in the morning and you want to be your best. That's what I see when I see a Logan Paul. And you can say what you want about stuff he's done or whatever. We've all done stupid stuff. It's
Yep,
about getting better as a person and getting better as a performer. Ronda Rousey got worse during
yep,
her time. She started here.
yep.
And then I would love to put a lie detector, Tommy, on every WWE superstar who was around during her time to see what they truly believe about her as a superstar. I don't care about her as a person. I mean, I got along with her just fine. But I'm saying just as a superstar, hearing those comments, what do you think other superstars who would love to have had that platform are saying today?
You know what they're saying, Coach? Walk away. Just get out of here. You know, we don't need to hear this anymore. We all know these superstars and people inside the company knew her true work ethic, which was zilch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're coming out with all this BS that you're spouting out about Logan Paul and everything like that. They know all the superstars know the truth, all the producers know the truth. So just walk away. We get you're trying to make headlines now because it's hot right now and you have a book, but all the superstars are saying they ain't buying a damn thing you're saying, honey.
You know what I like about it? The fact that this business is remarkably, has never been about people publicly going after each other. So you don't hear a bunch of WWE people saying, no, she did this. You don't hear all those
Right.
stories. She's telling a bunch of stories. Like she's throwing this guy under the bus for something
Yep.
that may or may not have happened 5 or
Right.
6 years ago, which
Right.
drives me absolutely
Yep.
insane when you just throw stories out there that may or
Yep.
may not be true. So take that for what it's worth.
Right.
But when you're here, work your ass off. And
That's
I
right.
can't wait to ask Hurricane about Logan Paul and what he's been like to work with. Because, Tommy, I will stand on this. This is
Yep.
the hardest platform in the game in entertainment to succeed at
That's
for
right.
so many reasons. But to get over with the fans when you're a YouTuber, and that's what you're
right.
known for,
Right.
how hard is that to do in your mind? And then we'll bring Hurricane in.
It's tremendously hard, Coach. You're the, Logan Paul coming in the beginning, and everybody kind of thought it was a joke, right? Like, oh, come on,
Mm-hmm.
he's a gimmick. It's a gimmick, as we say in the business, a gimmick, meaning he's not real. He's not going to perform well. He's not going to do anything. And he woke up everybody when he came in and worked his ass off and went down to the performance center to work on his craft, talked to superstars like John Cena and Roman Reigns and all these top superstars getting advice from him. That's called work, Coach. And it shows, as you see. He's a champion right now. and nobody works harder. I'm telling you, he works really hard.
Wouldn't you love to be in the meetings when they approached him for the first time and knowing the schedule that you and I kept and all those wrestlers kept for so many years, how that conversation went with Triple H when he works what, 8-10 weeks a year out of 52 weeks? That would be unheard of. I would love for him to look at Triple H right in the eye and go, you know what? I would love to be here. I'm a natural. But I'd only like to work 10, maybe 15 weeks a year. Are you good with that? And then Triple H going clearly, I think we can work something out. I mean, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, but yet he delivers. The first time he doesn't deliver, Tommy, then you're going to see the avalanche come down on him for not showing up. But that's not today, because that man shows up every time he is here. All right,
he has
Tommy.
a title. He has a title.
And when you give them a title, that matters too.
Yes,
that matters too.
Yes, sir.
All right, Tom, are you ready, big boy? Are you ready?
I can't wait. I can't wait.
All right. We told you when we started this show a couple months ago that we were kind of work into it and bring on guests from time to time that were a part of, in our opinion, the best time in the WWE. Our first guest is a major former WWE superstar. He is now a producer backstage, which means he puts the matches together with all of the current WWE superstars. He has one of the greatest gimmicks of all time. He got to work side by side in skits like nobody else with the Brahma Bull, The Rock. What an incredibly interesting guy, and can't wait to interview right now. Here is Hurricane Helms on Behind the Turnbuckle. Absolutely thrilled that our very first guest on Behind the Turnbuckle, he's a legend in the game. He's our good friend, my main man, Shane Helms, a.k.a. the Hurricane. Welcome. How are you, sir?
What it is, man. Thanks for having me. I'm the first guest, so that's a bit of an honor, man. I know how hard having guests can be in this type of format, so I appreciate you.
It's not easy, but there was nobody else I wanted to go to, because for people who are watching this for the first time, this is a story time show. This is about WWE. 32 years for Tommy, over 12 years for me. How many years for you in the WWE?
Right at 10 as a talent, and I came in as a producer at the end of 2018.
Wow. Could you have ever imagined that you would be a part of this juggernaut in so many different roles for this long?
Yeah, I know this was, I mean, if it wasn't for wrestling, I'd be digging ditches or something. You know, I had the brains to do other things, but I had no desire to do anything else other than this. So I was going to find a way to be around somehow. I didn't think it would be as big as it is. I mean, the way the company, I mean, our next 3 pay-per-views are all international.
That's crazy.
You know, so that's 3, maybe 4. I don't know, but yeah, it's wild.
That's what I ran, the international TV department for WWE, but I was on the road from 96 to 02. I was the floor manager, so I saw a lot of stuff back in the day, man.
Man, you guys, like, too, on this side of the of my career now, like the production side, I always had a great respect for the guys, you know, and I always knew where my camera guys were. I knew who my sound guys were. You know, if you're in television and you don't know those people, you're working uphill as it is. But now, like, when I have to get things done, there's so many members of that production team that nothing happens without these guys. Nothing happens without these guys. They're the unsung heroes for sure.
There's no doubt about it. Let's start, Hurricane, with WrestleMania. You were just a part of it, Philadelphia. We've talked a lot about on this show. You were a part of the era when there was 15 or 20 guys that could be in that main event, and historically a $1 million plus payday as a bonus if you were there. A lot of people think, oh, it's predetermined. When you looked at this WrestleMania and the competition that it was to get there, but then the beauty of putting it all together, what was it like up close?
It's work. It is a lot of work, man. When I used to, in the time period when I wasn't in WWE and, you know, WrestleMania had WrestleCon and all these things, that was a fun week for me because I could go do all these appearances, see all my buddies. If I'm signing at a table, I'll get up and leave. That wasn't good for the people that brought me in, but it's what I would do. Now it's work, man. I got there Tuesday. I got to Philly Tuesday night. It was all day Wednesday,
Wow.
all day Thursday, Friday, show Saturday, show Sunday, and I came home Monday, and I was a potato when I came home.
Hurricane, what is the difference between the locker room today and the locker room when you were there back in the day?
It's a little less rowdy, but a lot safer. You know, I mean, they take care of the guys a lot more. I always hear some of the older guys, and they talk about how things used to be back in the day, and it sounds like some of them wanted to be like it was back in the day. I don't agree with that. We paved the way for a reason. I didn't help
Right.
pave this road so that you couldn't walk on it or you couldn't drive on it. I want the locker rooms to be better. I want things to be a little easier because the grind is going to be the grind. It's never going to be an easy job. It's always going to be hard.
Oh yeah,
So we can make
definitely.
things a little easier on these talents. I'm all for that. I constantly hear, well, back in my day, like, I mean, how far back in your day you want to go? 'Cause people used to ride horses to work too. I ain't trying to go back that far. I like air conditioning. I like Wi-Fi.
Yep.
We've talked about it so much, and you talk about the grind's going to be the grind. For people to understand, 52 weeks, and we'll get into the car in a second because me and Hurricane traveled for 2 or 3 years together. And you got to find somebody you like, but every time over the years, and I hate dirt sheets. I don't like to read the headlines. I just do. But when certain guys come back in and the guys that have been on the grind, Hurricane, for 52 weeks, they look at WrestleMania as their payoff, as their chance to get what they deserve. And then when a guy like Rock comes in and they go, wait a second, he's taking my spot. Well, this year, you couldn't say that. That to me was the biggest storyline with all of those guys, and they had to pivot. They didn't believe that Rock was going to be the heel that he turned into. Watching the evolution and for Rock to be willing to go that far as a full-fledged heel, what did that say to you?
Well, first of all, The Rock ain't taking nobody's spot. The Rock's spot is solidified. If he wants to show up, that's his spot. That's just how it's going to be. And people have to recognize that. That's the same in any form of entertainment. You can go to a comedy club. If Dave Chappelle shows up, somebody might get bumped.
Yep.
That's just how it's going to be. That's just how it is. When you got the level, stars have gravity. That's why they're stars. Nice little metaphor there. And when you got the kind of gravity that The Rock has, that's going to bring in these outside eyes and the attention that he brings in, man, that's just part of the game. And you gotta learn to accept that. As far as Rock being heel, I loved it. And it was something that I was kind of hoping for anyway. Because I've seen Rock come back several times over the last decade or so, always to great fanfare, and that's always fun and it always delivers. But this was maybe about 6 months ago. I was having a dinner with Michael Hayes and Abyss, Chris Park. Abyss is a producer as well. And I was just like, man, I would like to see Rock be heel again, just to switch it up, just to see what happens. And so I was a big fan of it. Of course, like my story with The Rock was when he was the heel. So maybe I'm just biased to that guy, but I thought it brought a new dynamic.
I did too.
It was incredible. I mean, to have those guys and to have certain talents work 2 main events, Saturday and then Sunday, that's unprecedented. And that's hard because that's a huge gamble. What if somebody got hurt? What if in that tag match, either one of those 4 guys got hurt? It's a huge gamble. And we all take that gamble with every match, but we don't usually have another night of WrestleMania the next day.
Right.
So it was a huge gamble by the company. And from my eyes, it paid off well.
Are you a fan of the 2-night or you like 1 night WrestleMania?
I like 2 nights. I mean, because it's getting bigger and bigger. It's getting too big for one day. It was already a week with WrestleMania Access.
Sure.
You got SmackDown. You got the Hall of Fame. You got all of this. And you got these other outside companies coming in, making a ton of money off WWE's the event itself. And so I get it. Why not do 2? Let's see what happens. And I mean, the fans are tuning in and they're enjoying it. And this year, I mean, there was the concern for me every time we've done this is, are they going to be as lively that second night as they are their first?
Yes.
Dude, that second night this year was incredible. Now, it was cold as hell that first night. That took a lot of wind out of the sails because I walked out on that floor exactly once. Yeah, I walked out on that floor exactly once, and I said, "That's enough. I'm going back inside." But I love it. It's incredible. I think it's going to end up being a whole week, maybe a whole month. By 2040, it'll be the whole month of April will be WrestleMania.
There was so much content too. I mean, TV production wise, there was so much television that had to be shot. It was incredible. The work ethic of you guys and the TV production was just incredible. We and Coach were talking about that afterwards, and I worked production, so I know the hours that these guys put in. But this year, with so much content, I couldn't believe it. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, dude, if you go backstage now, like especially at Mania, there's things going on every second of the day. Something being shot over here. There's something being shot over here. There's a celebrity coming in over here. You can't even really pay attention. You're sitting there trying to do something. Hey, Drew Barrymore just walked by. Hey, how you doing? You know, and it's that type of pace. You really can't digest it all. Like if you sit there and think about it, you're going to get behind. Like a bunch of the producers, we all tried. Hunter came to us and said, "Hey, why don't you guys get a group shot?" And we wanted to do it on stage, but then doors happened, and then we're trying to get it. We couldn't even find the time to get a group picture. We had to do a bunch of different ones, and well, we
Wow.
lost this guy. Now bring this guy in. It
Wow.
was it's so insanely busy back there. Not just for television, but all the different platforms
Oh,
that
I
the
know.
WWE has now. It's
Yeah.
it's wild.
It's a machine. Like I don't know if we could have understood where it would go, or if it could get bigger than what we experienced. Really, a hurricane from 2000 to 2002. But the thing I like now is that there's a little more freedom for guys to come and go, and specifically a guy like Logan Paul. And he's been so famous outside of the WWE. I think when people said, "Oh, he's going to come here, how good is he going to be?" You specifically have worked with this kid, and every time he shows up, which is not that much, but he does, it's a banger. How talented is this
Yeah.
kid?
Well, he apparently has the best trainer of all time in his corner. Just gonna lob that right out there. Yeah, I've trained him from day one, and it's been
Wow.
incredible. So and like the first time, I just thought it was gonna be one off. The first match was actually Logan and Miz against Rhea and Dom Mysterio a couple WrestleManias ago, and I just kind of thought that was gonna be it. But he's invested. This dude wants to do this, so he signed an actual talent contract and all that. So
Wow.
yeah, and he puts in the work. And I mean, I have to put in the work because I'm there for all the training sessions. But man, this is somebody that wants it, and he listens. If the people that I have trained in my career listened, if they all listened half as good as Logan, my job would have been a lot easier. He just
Wow.
he absorbs it. He's on the phone with me all the time. Questions. Hey, what about this? What about that? He watches wrestling. An assignment I gave him. I said, find 30 minutes. If you can get an hour, that'd be better. But if it's only 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes, every week, watch something. Watch something in wrestling, watch something and digest it, and we'll talk about it. And man, he just puts in the work, and you can't ask for anything more than the talent other than the effort they give.
Hurricane, I want to follow up back with The Rock, right? Like he elevated the bloodline. These 2 months that he was here, we saw what happened with Raw, SmackDown, sold out shows, him just elevating everybody to the point where you couldn't wait for WrestleMania to come. Who came up with the idea for you to work with Rock back in the day in those vignettes that you did backstage with Rock, working backstage as Hurricane?
I'm sure that was Brian Gerwitz. He was the lead writer of Raw at the time. He was, Rock's writer. He was my writer. The whole Hurricane thing was his idea anyway. It was never
Really?
my idea. Yeah, yeah. I was an amateur wrestler for 7 years. I got like 22 gold medals. Yeah, it was
Wow.
never it was never in my plan to have a cape and a mask out there. And in WCW, it wasn't my plan to be in a boy band either. But these were the roles that were offered to me, and I'm just the type of guy that I take a challenge like that. And it's like, let's go. I firmly believe I can make anything work.
No,
You
you
know,
did. It
there's
was
been a
really good.
time or two where I was proven wrong. But
Well, that's the thing, Hurricane, because a lot of young wrestlers, they watch shows like this with guys that are the veterans that have been around, like the three of us have been collectively for over 55 years inside the WWE. When you talk about character development, and when you hit something that's not working, and then you show up, and a lot of guys will sit around and do nothing all day and be like,
mhm.
"How come you're not using me? How come you're not using me?" When they came to you with the Hurricane gimmick and they said, "This is what we want," and I know that you're into all these different things, but not everybody maybe does. Were you completely sold on it, or at that time were you in a
Hell no.
situation like hell no?
Hell no.
Explain that process.
Um, well, so this was the buyout. This was after the buyout, the invasion storyline. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there was no other company. There's one company in wrestling right now, the biggest company, well, in North America. You know, everybody that was a star in ECW, they're in WWE now. Everybody that was a star in WCW, they're in WWE. It was the most stacked roster you could possibly imagine. And there I was, little Sugar Shane. And they wouldn't even let me be Sugar Shane. They took that away from me on my debut.
Wow.
I had probably the worst debut of anybody that ever made it. You know, I'm sure there's somebody that had a debut and we never saw him again, you know, but somebody that actually survived that debut, nobody I think even comes close to what I lost on that first night of my debut. They came to me, we're going to take your name. We're going to take your gimmick. We're going to take your entrance. We're going to take your entrance song. You can't do your finisher anymore. And we're going to take your championship all in one night. Wow. Nobody's ever had to overcome that. Nobody.
Wow.
And so I was in peril. Mentally, I was like, wow. You know, and I had a situation backstage that didn't get me in trouble, but it did kind of like, hey, this kid might be a wild card. So, you know, I was already had that going on. And when that happened, you know, Stephanie McMahon back then was, she helped me produce a lot of my stuff. And she was the one that kind of talked me through it. You know, she's telling me that night about my debut. She goes, don't worry, we like you. You know, and she just had a calming presence for me, you know, because I was in panic mode, I'll be honest. And so after that, they called me Gregory Helms that first night. They wanted to call me Hollywood Helms. I think I told you this, and I was not a fan of that. And so the next week, I show up before the production meeting even happened. I get to the building early as hell. I find Stephanie when she's coming in the building. I said, what do you think about Hurricane Helms? And I just like that. Hurricane just rhymed with Shane. And I was the Hurricane Kid once in like 92 or 93, way back in the day. And so she's like, you really don't want to be Gregory, do you? And I go, it doesn't have a hook. Right. And when I said that, I saw recognition in her eyes. She goes, oh, this kid's not an idiot. She might have been wrong about that part, but at least in that moment, she thought I wasn't an idiot. So she goes, has the meeting, and, you know, an hour or two later, I see Vince walking down the aisle, and he goes, Hurricane Helms, I like it. And I go, woo! And so now I'm Hurricane Helms, but I still got the little tights, little kick pads, how I dressed as Sugar Shane. And I did that for a couple of weeks, and, you know, we're in the invasion, which isn't going too well for our side.
Shocking. Shocking.
I think there are people that really thought WCW was going to win. Yeah? That's what you thought? You thought WCW was going to win? You thought Vince McMahon bought this company and they're going to win? You thought that? Okay.
There were a few. There were a few.
I know.
To
this day, this day, there are people. You thought that. Okay. All right, then. And so anyway, then, you know, they liked me, but I was lost in the shuffle for sure. You know, but I was working. I'm happy. And they came to me one day. Stephanie came up and told me that the pitch for the Hurricane, you know, we're going to make you a superhero in a cape and a mask. And I just said, okay, I'll give it my best. And I always, and I've said this in so many interviews. And she goes, it'll be a few weeks, a few months at the most. And that was in 2001.
And now 23 years later, it's what you're best known for.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. And I tried to stop it. Like when I left WWE in 2010, I say left, they say fired, whatever. So I went to another company called Lucha Libre USA, and I tried to not be the Hurricane. I took the mask off because they had a bunch of luchadors. I said, I'll be different. The fans just wouldn't take it. You know, They want it. Either I'm too ugly and they want me in a mask, or they really like the Hurricane character. It might be a little bit of both, but I tried to do something different, and the fan, it was swimming upstream. Fans just like, give us Hurricane. That's what we want. And I was like, okay.
So incredibly popular. Got something, Tommy?
Yeah. We saw Triple H all through WrestleMania. You know, he was with everybody, working with the superstars, working with production and everything like that. And as your job as a producer now, how much input do you have in putting together a match?
It depends on the talent. And it depends, and not only does it depends on the talent, it depends on how the talent is feeling that day. You know, sometimes the talent comes in and they're ready to go. They need very little from me. Sometimes they need a lot. So it just varies, you know.
Yes. Speaking of talent, and I do a lot of interviews about my time there. And they go, oh, are you ever going to come back? Well, I've been kind of come back once or twice. It's probably the only business where you can leave 3 or 4 times and nobody's surprised when you come back. But I think people were shocked, Hurricane, when Cody Rhodes left and forged his own path, and essentially was one of 4 dudes who got a completely another company started. And then you had CM Punk, who unceremoniously left, and both guys have come back in the last 2 years. Which one shocked you more?
Oh, the Punk one was definitely the bigger shock.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I didn't think he was ever going to come back here, just because of bad blood with past administrations and some of the stuff that was said online while he was gone. But you also have to realize that we all say stupid stuff and fits of anger or whatever. Maybe we were feeling that way at that time, because I always do that. Now, this is definitely stuff I said in the past, and people were like, "Well, did you mean it?" And I'm always like, well, "At that time, I did. I might not feel that way now, but that's how you grow as a person." So in terms of Phil backstage, he's been a pleasure ever since he's been back. So, and I never had no problems with him to begin with, so I'm not surprised that he's been a pleasure with me, but I haven't heard of anything bad either. The Cody, I'm glad, I was always a big Cody fan. And I even, when they did All In, the one big show that kind of led to the creation of AEW.
Yeah, Chicago. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I worked for them in that show. And Cody sent me a payday, and I sent it back. And I said, "No, that was my gift to you guys to help you. I want you guys to make it." So I sent my payday back. Now that he's got all this money, I might need to revisit. Need to revisit that with a little interest, on that. But that's how much I appreciated those guys and what they were doing. I thought that they were going to bring something new and big. I didn't think it was going to be a whole entire company, but I'm fascinated by what they were able to pull off in that time.
10,000 seats as an indie show they sold that night. That was one of the most remarkable things that I have ever seen. Go ahead, Tommy.
Hurricane. So we see Rock made a comeback, right? He's back. Cena said he wants to do another run. Flair is never going to retire. What makes people not want to leave this business? Like, you're in a producer role now. You tell me, is it just the love of the pro wrestling? Because it's incredible how all these comebacks, and you're in a producer role now. So can you just explain that a little?
It's just, there's nothing like this.
Right.
There's just nothing else like pro wrestling, sports entertainment, however you want to label it. There's just nothing like it, man. And it's such a unique thing to be a part of. And when it gets inside you, when it's in your blood, man, it's hard to get away from. And I loved it since I was a kid. So it was all I ever wanted to do. And I've thought about that all through my life. What was it about this crazy shit that I wanted to do so bad? I loved being a competitor, as far as being an amateur wrestler and stuff like that. But the showmanship is what like really attracted me to pro wrestling, because I love the amateur wrestling, but a lot of athletes in that combat mode, they're so introverted because you got to be in here because you're focusing on this one opponent. I'm talking about, most combat sports. So a lot of guys, MMA fighters too, if you guys ever going to interview some of them, it's hard to get a good interview out of some of these guys.
Yeah.
They don't have the personalities, the larger than life that pro wrestling does. So when one comes along, like a Conor McGregor, he stands out so much. Like, that dude has a pro wrestling personality for sure. And it was the personalities that really drove me, and the stories and everything. And I love the competition because there is a competition. People think we don't compete against each other. You're damn crazy.
Yeah.
You think every single one of us wanted to be Roman Reigns. Every single one of us wants to be the tribal chief.
Yep.
But you got to be smart too. If you want to be in the movies and Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be in the movie, you're not going to be the star. And he was never the best actor in any movie he was in. Even Kindergarten Cop, he was in there with a bunch of kids and they were better than he was. But he's a star. And I'm not saying, and let me say that I'm not saying that's Roman, because I think Roman is absolutely great.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to be that big star. But if you can't be the quarterback, you better find another role to play.
That's right.
That is unbelievable advice. Be in the game. Sometimes it's better to be on the field as a fullback than it is to sit on the sideline and watch everybody else play. Young wrestlers, young entertainers, young anything out there, understand that you don't have to be the star to be in the game all the time. I'm so glad that you said that. But also, you've got to be able to, I've said this in a million different interviews, because it is crazy shit what this business will do to you.
Yes.
52 weeks a year. And when we were traveling back in the day, now at least they get a little bit of time off. At least Roman and some of these guys get a little bit of time off. I missed one Monday night, and that was after I got married. That was it in over 10 years. You weren't allowed to miss.
Nope.
But I also said this.
I still have that stupid mentality. I haven't asked for a day off since I've been back.
Isn't that crazy? Why do you think we're scared to miss time?
I think it's just, for me, it's who I am. I came up working. Like, when you actually come from nothing, and I know I hear a lot of people say that shit, and then, I'll find out, they had a nice house when they were young. Both parents had cars. I'm like, you don't know what come from nothing, really.
Right.
You got the American version of come from nothing. I came from legit, my grandparents didn't have running water. Like, we had an outhouse and a well. That's coming from nothing. So I kind of had the dog in me that I had to work. I had to work to get things, just to get things to survive, not even good shit. You know what I'm saying? just so I work all the time. And whenever I do seminars, it fascinates me. I ask people, like, how much time you take off? And there are people like, yeah, I take every weekend off. And I'm like, that's 2 days a week.
Yeah.
There's 4 weeks in a month.
Yep.
There's 52 weeks in a year. So if you're taking 2 days off a week, that's over 100 days. That's over 3 months where you're not doing shit to get where you want to be. You have to be very careful about taking those days off. I take rest days. I got to recharge.
Right.
But you got to be careful with that shit.
You do it very strategically, though. And I think that's about being greatness. And I think that's why I love having you on today, because other people think everybody gets to the WWE. I look at it like it's a pyramid. The higher you go, the less opportunities there are. So the other thing that you were great at, that you got to be next to, that I got to be next to, was guys like The Rock, and understanding you could be the best in-ring worker to be. I wasn't great at all, but I was more over than some guys as a heel because I could do this. I could do this. I could talk. How important is the mic work today if you want to get yourself over today?
Oh, it's more important than ever. That's never going to go away. There's a lot of little things we can do to help out, the vignettes we were doing with Shinsuke Nakamura recently with, the animation and the subtitles, and allowing him to speak in his native language. And that way, because it's a little easier to emote in your native language than it is a second language. Right. That would be the case for most people. So having the technology and the editing skills that we have now to be able to do that helps guys out. But for sure, being able to just grab that microphone and let loose and be good at it, yeah, that's always going to be important.
How important is character development?
It's crucial.
Yep.
Absolutely crucial. I got to know who you are. If it's just a random guy, it's like when you watch, UFC just had UFC 300 with a lot of stars. And then you can watch UFC Fight Night where they don't have a lot of stars. And the fights can be as good, but you're just not as invested. Right. You invest in the character. You invest in the personality. Everybody in the WWE is a good performer. They can go out there and tackle, drop down, and do all that shit. But why do I care about a wrestling move unless I care about the person doing it?
It's so funny that you say that. Tajiri was my first pay-per-view match, and you'll remember this. He used to fake. Remember Hurricane and Tommy? He used to fake that he didn't know English, even though he lived in this country for over 12 years. And he just didn't want to talk to anybody. And so Dean Malenko, we're back in Stanford. And
especially if he was doing the job. His English got really bad then. he turned into a mute almost sometimes.
What he means is if he has to lose. When we say doing the job, it means he has to lose. Well, he had to lose to me. So we're sitting there.
Even worse. I'm surprised he could walk. I'm surprised he didn't lose full function from the hair down. I gotta do what? With who? Oh no.
No, that was Stone Cold. That wasn't. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I should have said that. But I'll never forget that I said it to Jerry. I said, listen, as long as I get my shit in, we can do whatever else you want to do. And Jerry looked at me and he goes, you have shit? And Dean Malenko says to him, no, he is the shits. Yes. And then I went over. My first W on pay-per-view ever. And I tell people, if I would have wanted to be world heavyweight champ and the powers that be wanted me to be world heavyweight champ, I would have been world heavyweight champ.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. But you got to compete for these spots.
Yeah.
The other part that took me probably, Hurricane, over a year of nightmares of waking up not knowing what city I was in. When I left and went to ESPN, I had been traveling so long and for so many days in a row that I thought I was still supposed to be on the road. When you're talking travel, because many people don't know this, you and I, just by circumstance, found ourselves in the same car one week. And that turned into a couple of years with Christian. And we were called the car. That's what they called it. When we walked into a building, Tommy, they said, hey, is the car here? Because you have to check in at a certain time. And then they knew if the car was there, it was me, Hurricane, and Christian were there. How important, A, is it to find somebody you like? And what were those couple of years with me and with Christian like for you?
It's vitally important to find a travel partner that you can get along with. And those were some of the best years of my life. And we've said this offline, so this ain't me blowing smoke just for this show. Me, you, and Jay, that was some of the funnest years of my life because there was never no problems. Like every person I've ever traveled with, at some point, I've had to tell them to go fuck themselves. At some point, they got on my nerves.
Oh,
but
I know.
You're gonna butt heads at some time. I don't recall us ever butting heads.
No.
There was one time we got you mad, but it was a rib when I kept turning on the fucking hazard light because for some reason it was near. It was near closer to the passenger side of the car, near my knee. And I was just touching it. And for some reason, Jay was in the back, which never happened. I was always in the back seat. For some reason, Jay was back there. And you were convinced it was him. And you got so fucking mad that we kept turning it on.
Tommy, I kid you not. I was so angry. I threatened to throw them out of the car, and we were in the middle of South Dakota somewhere. They just kept hitting the button, and the flashers would go on, and I had because I always drove. Unless I was tired, I always drove. And so they kept doing it. They thought it was funnier and funnier and funnier. And I'm telling you right now, Tommy, the reason we didn't fight is I would get the car. Jay or Christian would handle booking the hotel. And luckily, we all liked the same hotel. We all stayed at the Hampton Inn, everything. And Hurricane was in charge of entertainment. That was literally his job, was to entertain the entire. He didn't have to do anything. He was just like, show up, entertain us, and we'll handle everything else. That's why we all got along. And
it worked for me because Coach liked driving. I detest it. I hate being in a car. I hate driving. If I can never be in a car the rest of my life, that would be fine. And Jay likes to sit in the front seat. For some reason, that makes him feel a little bit more authoritative. Jay, you got to kind of baby sometimes. All right, you can have the front seat. I don't give a shit. Until you're in the back seat, I can stretch out. So I would be back there napping, and I would just wake up, say something stupid. They would all laugh. I go back to sleep, and everybody's happy.
Except for the night, two quick stories, except for the night that I was so tired, it's like 2 a.m., so I need to fall asleep, so I'm in the back seat. These idiots decide, hey, why don't we pull a prank where we get as close to an 18-wheeler as we possibly can, going 85 miles an hour, then slam on the brakes and act like we're getting into a head-on or a crash of some kind because I'm dead asleep. Tommy, I kid you not. The scariest moment of my entire life.
He was whiter than Sheamus when he woke up. He screamed so loud, and his eyes came out like Roger Rabbit and shit. So scared.
Tommy, I was so scared. I thought it was over because literally we're so close to the back of an 18-wheeler. All you're seeing is lights. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and they say they're both of them are screaming, and I pop up. I'm like, oh my God. Literally, we almost came to blows. I was like, pull it over. 1 on 2 right now. Right now.
One time too, like him and Jay tried to rib me. They tried to act like they were going to get in a fight because they wanted me to like break it up. But what they don't know is I don't break up fights. Y'all gonna fight. That shit's on y'all. I ain't getting nothing. And two, it was snow on the ground. It's like, I'm gonna get out in the snow and break this fight. Y'all can beat each other's ass. I'm gonna stay in the car. So that shit did not work.
Is he coming? Is he coming?
Nope.
Is he coming? He just sat in there. We're out there like idiots, wet, fake beating each other up. But I'll tell you this, Tommy, this was, and it's not close. It is not close. And sometimes you got to be there, and hopefully this translates. But we had a 4-day run, and for whatever reason, Rhino comes up to us the week before. He goes, hey, I heard you guys normally get an SUV. How about I hop in next week and do we call it the loop, the 4 days.
Yeah. Well, that happened because I had a media week, because they would always make me do these media days. And
Yes.
so on that weekend, I wasn't on the live events because I had to do media. And Rhino jumped in the car with you and Jay. That's how it first started.
Right.
And then the next week, he's like, hey, can I hop in again?
Yeah. And it did not go well. So it's Sunday night, and we decide to stop after the house show at a gas station on the way to Des Moines, Iowa. And I should have known, because I got married around Des Moines, Iowa, got divorced. I should have known anything about Des Moines, Iowa is not good for me.
Not good.
Well, we're heading to Des Moines, Iowa. And we stop at this particular, and we had all agreed. Me, Jay, Hurricane, this was the last day for Rhino. He's never jumping in again, right? So we all buy our drinks, and I'll never forget, I bought a red Gatorade. And we get in the car, and
remember it was a Subway connected to a gas station, and we went and got a sandwich, and we're in a rush. We got to get to wherever we're going, and listen. Let's say we love Rhino, and we love Rhino and Terry. We love him. This story might not appear that way, but we do. We do. It was just he sits down to eat, and we're all standing there going, "Hey, get the fuck up! We gotta go."
It's 7:00 at night. You're sitting your ass in the middle of nowhere in a Subway in a gas station to eat your sandwich, which nobody's ever done in time.
Right.
He decides to do it. That's the last straw. Hurricane had enough. We get into the car, and I'm driving. And for some reason, I take a drink of the red Gatorade. And Rhino says in real time, hey, guys, this has been fantastic. I land at 7:15 next Friday. Why don't you guys swing through and pick me up? And Hurricane says, I shit you not. Doesn't blink an eye, goes, I don't believe that's an option. I literally blew red Gatorade out of my nose, out of my mouth. And he looked at him like, are you serious? Hurricane didn't even blink an eye. He goes, dead serious. You're done. You're never riding in this car again. I don't believe that's an option.
I had to make an executive decision. But the Gatorade thing, though, you're missing the big point. That got you cooked. What really cooked you was, now, we love Terry. You have to understand. But this dude was getting paid by the syllable in there because it was just nonstop. Just like, dude, shut the fuck up. You know? He kept going on and on.
That's great.
And then I go, hey, I was supposed to ask you a question. He goes, yeah, what's up? I go, will you shut the fuck up? That's when you spit the Gatorade. Because the Gatorade came out his nose. Coach is driving, and now he swerves over in the damn oncoming traffic. And like Christian's trying to grab the steering wheel. We're all over the damn road. Everybody's screaming at this point now, but we're laughing so hard, including Terry. He knew what was happening. It was just a singer. There was a softball. I had to hit it. And man, we were all laughing, about to die. Like anything could have happened and when we were losing control of the car. But man, and then that turned into how many different ways could we tell each other to shut the fuck up? And that lasted for like a year and a half. It was a nonstop, maybe longer.
Wow.
I literally have used that to this day. I use that to this day. We're like, hey, I got a quick question for you. Nobody ever sees it coming. It's just when you've had enough, would you please shut the
fuck up?
It works to this day.
Those are incredible stories. And I rode on the road with a lot of different people, but I had the privilege of driving Gorilla Monsoon. He was the president.
Wow.
And we had and the good thing back in the day in TV production, you got Hertz, you never got the gold card, you know what I mean? But Gino had the gold card. So I would go right through to the airport. My name would be up there. Meanwhile, all of TV productions waiting in line. Had to be a Cadillac or a Lincoln. So I drove Gorilla all over the place. Had to have a cassette deck. Out of all the music,
no 8-track.
No, it was a cassette. I remember it well. So out of all the music or anything they want to hear, what do you think Gorilla wanted to hear?
So Mix-a-Lot.
No.
No. It's my first guess.
Hip hop?
No. It was comedy. What? He wanted to. He brought Richard Pryor with him all the time.
Oh.
Is that amazing?
They did have cassettes back in the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that's right.
I had them
listen
all.
To all that.
I had them all.
Richard Pryor. I would have thought Frank Sinatra, whatever. I'm like, all right, Gino, what do you want? He goes, put this in. Because I liked Richard Pryor back in the day.
Yeah.
And he played, we had a great time, but he told me stories that would knock your head off. And once we went by a Bob's Big Boy, Tommy, we got to stop. Boom. He would get 5 sausages, the round ones, the big ones in a row, get a paper towel, pat them down, and eat them one after another, and that was it. The greatest guy you ever want to meet. When he passed away, Hurricane, his wife asked me to be a pallbearer.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Wow.
Me and Kevin Dunn.
Amazing.
Incredible.
And he's an absolute legend. We're just about out of time, but I got to ask this last question. And I've never actually done this, Tommy. But the reason this dude, and why I wanted to have him on, because you never get to publicly acknowledge anybody. And so my question to you is going to be, who's been your favorite people in the business? But you're one of mine, and this is one of the biggest reasons why. Tommy, you were there when I got married. Say what you want, I'm divorced now, but it was a special time in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
This dude right here has neck surgery, has a full-fledged neck brace on. He still flies to Des Moines, Iowa, drives an hour to put a tuxedo on to stand next to me when I got married. And he could have easily backed out.
And you remember I pulled the tie through the little hole in the neck brace?
You did. You did. Oh, my God. I mean, those were amazing times. But that's who we're talking to right here. That's the heart of this guy. And that's what this business either brings out of you or takes away from you. So for that, I'm forever grateful, Hurricane. But also, when you think back to your time and your career, and I know you have several years to help guys, but what's your biggest takeaway, and who have been some of your favorite people?
Man, there's a lot, man. The people I came up with, Matt and Jeff, the fact that we all stayed friends, and Shannon Moore too, and we all got to work with each other. So on the biggest stages of all, they'll always stand with me, But you and Christian, of course, man, you guys, I'll be fond of you guys to the day I die. That's not going to change. Some of the heroes that Flair taking me under his wing for whatever reason, that's just always amazed me. I just saw him in Mania, and the first thing he sees me across the bar, he just yelling, "Hurricane!" So
it feels so good.
I mean, the number of people that have impacted my life and career are just too many, just way too many. And I'll leave you with this little nugget, because somebody that when I was training Logan for the Roman Reigns match in Saudi, one of the production people had helped me with something, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. And this was a year later that I'm talking to this guy, and he reminded me of it. And I was like, "Oh yeah." And it doesn't matter what it was, but he was just kind of like, yeah, it was nothing. I was like, no, it was something, man. You helped. And I said to him, and it was just one of those things, and I'm sure we've all done this. You say something, like, hey, man, that's pretty wise. Where did that come from? But I told this kid, I go, no matter how small your piece of the puzzle was, the puzzle wasn't complete without you. And I was like, man, I need to remember that myself, because there are some things that I help people with a little bit, and I just kind of forget about it. And then I forget about some people that have helped me. And it's real easy to forget because you get lost in the scope of things. But there are so many people. We all like to think, hey, I did it my way. I did it by myself. No, you didn't. Nobody does it by themselves. So I was really blessed with, and so fortunate that I got to work with so many great people. And I'm glad that I was able to make an impact on some of those people as well.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I think maybe I needed to hear that today. There's a lot of times where I forget how much I enjoyed my time in pro wrestling, and I kind of shut that part off. And this show is kind of an ode to our time when we loved it the most. And so you saying that to end your interview is very, very apropos, and exactly why we're doing this today, because we got to remember those moments, and we got to remember the really good times, and hopefully help those in the days that we still have left moving forward. So I love that message. I love you, brother. I love you for coming on and being our first guest. And we will always be brothers, man. All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man. Love you guys.
Thank you, Hurricane.
You bet.
My goodness, Tommy, how good was that?
Wow.
How good was that?
Incredible, Coach. And I've been with the company 32 years. I never really sat down with any of the producers, but the stuff he was coming out with was incredible. He's a great guy. He's great for the business, and what a wonderful guy, and what a work ethic. Boy, what he went through was unbelievable. Thank you, Hurricane.
Thank you, Hurricane. That was obviously he's close to me. But over the years, it's not like we talk every day, but that's the beauty, Tommy, of this business. That's right. I think you just saw it, that when you go through something so special, and when you're together 4 or 5 days a week, you're in the car together, You're staying in the same hotel. You're working out. You've got to like the same things, or else it's going to drive you insane to travel together.
Right.
And then you're wrestling 4 days on top of that. You still have to produce. I will always hold a special place in my heart for that man right there. And you were at my wedding. What he did just to show up was next level kind of stuff. Incredible stuff. He has a heart of gold, and he has a mind for the business. And we use that phrase a lot, but not everybody does, Tommy. And the way he puts matches together, when you watch a Logan Paul, or you can tell who the producers of matches are because of how creative those are, right? He's very, very creative.
Yep. 4-star matches, Logan Paul matches, and he's a big part of it. Thank you, Hurricane, once again.
All right, so we have arrived at the end of this episode. We're going to attempt to have interviews every single week. If there are any of the superstars from 1995 to 2010 that you would like to see on the show, please put it into the comments section or message us on social media. Give us some names, and we will reach out and bring them right here and hear their stories from their times in the WWE. But Tommy, good episode.
Great episode.
It's going to be a big week. I know you're going to be at the big fight this weekend, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm working Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and hopefully working with the old colleague Todd Grisham, working ringside. So I do freelance work, and man, I can't wait for that fight to happen. I'm going to be sitting ringside, and I'm getting paid for it. How great is that?
Let all that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. My man, the Grish. You see him on Driving the Line. He was on actually today, if you're watching the show on Friday, to preview. He's the voice of DAZN. He does all the big fights. And Tommy will be right next to him in Brooklyn on Saturday night. Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. Yeah, both are going to make north of $15 million expected if the buy rate is where they think it's going to be. And I think it's going to be high. I think it's going to be high. I
agree.
All right. Damn it, I love doing the show. That's going to do it for us. Follow us on social media. Follow the show on social media. Share the show. Like the show. We want this to really grow so we can continue to tell you stories for the next 10, 20 years. All right, for my man, Big Tommy C, I am the coach, and for Producer Man, always behind the scenes. We'll see you next time on your new favorite show right here, Behind the Turnbuckle.